I manage risk for a living. I'm the girl people call when they want to know how bad things can get before the numbers start screaming. The one who runs worst-case scenarios for breakfast and tells executives when they're about to mess up. I watch other people's blind spots for a paycheck. And somehow, the biggest, dumbest risk in my life was sleeping 2 inches away from me every night, calling me baby and asking for my banking password like it was no big deal. My name's Emma, I'm 31, an analyst. And while I was busy acting like I had my whole life on lock, my perfect boyfriend, Ryan, all charm and easy smiles, was slowly turning my love into a liability. At first, he felt like the balance to my spreadsheets. Fun, playful, making jokes with waiters, remembering my coffee order, hyping me up like I was the smartest person in every room. I kept telling myself, finally I didn't fumble this one. The joke is, I thought nothing got past me, that I was too sharp, too detail-oriented to get played. Meanwhile, the biggest fraud wasn't buried in some quarterly report. He was right there on my couch, half watching Netflix, half plotting around my savings, and I had no idea I was about to learn the hard way that my professional risk models didn't cover the guy I let into my bed. From the outside, everything looked picture perfect. Our apartment was the kind of place you'd see in a lifestyle reel. Clean lines, framed art that said things like, work hard, rest easy, and a tiny plant he kept pretending he watered. Mornings had a routine that made me feel like we were some power couple just getting started. Coffee brewing, music low, sunlight hitting the counter while he wrapped his arms around me and called me M. We looked like 2 people who had it figured out. The thing is, control doesn't always show up with yelling or slammed doors. Sometimes it hides inside sweetness, little comments that feel like care until they start to shrink your world. Ryan was smooth about it. He'd say things like, "You don't really like those people, do you?" Or, "You work so hard, you don't need to waste your weekends with them." At first it sounded considerate. I was tired, so staying in felt fine. But after a while, I realized I hadn't seen half my friends in months. My phone would buzz, I'd glance at it and then flip it face down before he noticed. He didn't have to tell me not to go out anymore. I'd already trained myself not to trigger one of his quiet moods. It wasn't that he was openly mean, he was strategic. He'd guilt-trip me for things that didn't even make sense. If I got home late from work, he'd sigh, like I'd personally betrayed him. If I didn't text back right away, he'd make jokes about how some people forget who they come home to. I'd laugh, brush it off, but there was always that flicker of warning underneath it. The kind that makes you double-check your tone before speaking. On Instagram, we looked solid. Cute photos, dinner dates, inside jokes in the captions. He made sure everyone saw what a good man he was. He'd tag me in things about loyalty and building together. Meanwhile, the air in our place started feeling heavier, like the walls were learning to listen. The couch we bought together, I stopped sitting on my side of it. The playlists he made, I couldn't hear them without feeling my stomach twist. Still, he had this way of apologizing that reset everything. A soft voice, a promise to do better, a touch on my shoulder that made me forget the weird stuff for a minute. He'd smile and say, "You know I'd never hurt you, right?" And I wanted to believe that. I really did. Because who wants to admit they fell for someone who's quietly rewriting the rules of your life while pretending to love you? If you'd walked in back then, you'd think we were goals, a modern couple with their lives synced up. But if you'd stayed long enough to see my reflection in the microwave door while he talked, you'd catch the truth in my eyes. Something was already dying under all that gloss. And I hadn't yet figured out that the rot was him. The first real crack didn't come from a fight or a confession. It came from a single, boring little bank alert at 2:13 a.m. I was half asleep when my phone buzzed, and I remember squinting at the screen, thinking it was some random notification. But no, it was from our joint account. External transfer, 480 there. That late at night? I told myself it had to be an error. Maybe some bill auto-paid twice or a system glitch. I even laughed about it in the morning and said, "Banks are weird sometimes." Ryan smiled, kissed my forehead, and said, "Don't worry, babe. I got it." A week later, it happened again. Different amount, same time range. $720 external account. No description, no notes. I should have asked harder questions, but I didn't. I kept thinking, we're fine. He's probably just moving stuff around. That's what happens when someone chips away at your confidence piece by piece. You stop trusting yourself. And that's how he wanted it. Still, my brain kept tugging at it. I checked the app one night when he was asleep. And that's when I noticed it. small withdrawals every few days, mostly between midnight and 3 a.m. I scrolled and scrolled, the amounts stacking up like quiet betrayals. $500 here, $200 there, $900 again. Different nights, same destination account. The total made my chest tighten, almost $50,000. My entire savings gone. The craziest part? The pattern looked deliberate. It wasn't a one-time oops, it was precision. He'd been doing it for months, little by little, like testing how much he could take before I'd notice. It was the financial version of gaslighting. Slow, sneaky, almost invisible if you weren't looking close. I stared at the screen. My reflection ghosted in the black glass of my phone, and my heart just dropped. I remember whispering to myself, no way, but the timestamps didn't lie. The numbers didn't lie. My login hadn't been used at those hours, so someone else, someone I slept next to, was in there moving my money. The next day I asked him about it. Not with anger, just confusion. Hey, what are those late-night transfers from the joint account? He didn't even blink. Relax, Em, I'm paying some stuff off. You're stressing over nothing. Then came the smirk, that little head shake he always used when he wanted me to feel small. You really gotta stop letting work fry your brain, babe. That line hit harder than it should have. Because deep down I knew what was coming. The denial, the dismissal, the rewrite. But instead of arguing, I just nodded. Okay, I said, pretending to believe him. That night, after he fell asleep, I opened the banking app again and took screenshots. Every transfer, every alert, every password change email, date, time, device ID, all of it. I didn't know what I'd do next, but I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't paranoia anymore. This was evidence. There's this moment when your brain finally snaps out of denial, and everything you've ignored starts lining up like dots on a chart. That night, sitting in the dark with my laptop glowing blue across the sheets, I stopped being Ryan's girlfriend and went full analyst mode. No more feelings, no more excuses, just data. I pulled up the joint account and printed every single statement from the last 6 months. The sound of the printer spitting out page after page felt weirdly satisfying, like proof that I wasn't losing it. I laid them across the kitchen table, rows of numbers like a trail of breadcrumbs he didn't think I'd ever follow. The pattern was almost artistic. Every withdrawal landed between 12:05 a.m. and 3:00 a.m., his can't-sleep hours when he'd get up, scroll his phone, and wander the apartment pretending to check emails. Each transfer amount was just small enough to avoid triggering a fraud alert. He knew what he was doing. I took a pen and circled every one of them in red ink. Then I made a simple note at the top of the first page. Funds moved without authorization. Repeated pattern. It hit me then. This wasn't just theft. It was strategy. He'd built a system of quiet control, hiding behind my own trust. And that realization flipped something deep inside me. The fear turned into focus. I started building a timeline. Date account opened. When he first mentioned sharing finances, when the first unexplained transfer happened, when my gut started whispering that something was off. By the time I finished, my notebook looked like a case file. Screenshots taped in, sticky notes marking timestamps, little arrows connecting events. The same obsessive detail I used at work to predict risks, I was now using to dissect my relationship. When Ryan came home the next evening, I had all the evidence stacked neatly in a folder. But I didn't say a word. I couldn't, not yet. He leaned down, kissed my neck, and asked, "Rough day?" I said, "Yeah, just numbers." That word, numbers, made me want to laugh and scream at the same time. He had no idea those numbers were his undoing. Later, when he went to shower, I stared at our reflection in the bathroom mirror. 2 toothbrushes, 1 shared towel, 1 secret. My own face looked unfamiliar, colder, steadier. I realized I wasn't waiting for him to come clean anymore. I didn't need his honesty. I had the data. That was the night I wrote in my notebook. Stop reacting emotionally. Start preparing strategically. And that's when I changed roles completely. I wasn't his partner now. I was the investigator quietly living inside the crime scene, waiting for the perfect moment to walk out, with receipts. He thought he was in control, but the thing about analysts? Once we identify the variable causing loss, we eliminate it. Once I'd accepted what he'd done, the fear started fading and the logic kicked in. I needed a plan, nothing dramatic, just a clean, strategic exit that didn't tip him off. I wasn't about to give him a heads up and let him twist it all again. So I laid it out like I would any high-risk project, step by step, calm, factual, airtight. I opened my notes app and wrote the words, "Control the evidence. Control the story." Then I started compiling everything I had: screenshots, alerts, transfer logs, even the stupid text messages where he'd pushed for the joint account. "Babe, it's just easier this way," he'd said. "We're a team. Cute, right?" I exported everything into a folder labeled Budget R2023, something boring he'd never open. Then I backed it up to a hidden cloud account. My paycheck was still hitting the joint account every 2 weeks, feeding the same hole he was digging. So I called HR at work, said I needed to update my deposit info. I rerouted everything to a new checking account under my name only. New bank, new login, new password. I moved my credit cards too. It took 15 minutes, and when I hung up, I actually exhaled for the first time in weeks. I printed the transaction history again, this time with the timestamps bolded. I highlighted the withdrawals that matched nights he'd said he was working late. I stapled the printouts together, slipped them into a folder, and taped a sticky note on the front that said, "Taxes." He never went near anything that looked remotely financial or boring. It sounds corny, but I stopped reacting. No arguing, no defending, no apologizing. When he got moody, I didn't chase. When he asked if I was mad, I just said, "I'm fine." He thought he'd worn me down. What he didn't realize was that I was clocking his every move. The less I gave, the more predictable he became. That was useful. I knew eventually something would happen. A slip, a mistake, a piece of proof I couldn't deny. So I prepped for that moment. I made a checklist of what I'd grab when I left. ID, documents, laptop, that folder. Everything else? Replaceable. I didn't tell anyone yet, not even friends. The fewer people who knew, the fewer ways he could spin it. Every night, I'd sit on the couch beside him, watching TV while silently tightening the net around him. He'd scroll his phone, crack jokes, lean over to kiss my cheek, totally unaware that the game had already flipped. I wasn't his target anymore. I was the quiet storm brewing right beside him. By the end of that week, I had what I needed: proof, independence, calm. The only thing left to do was wait, for the moment he'd hang himself with his own lies. And trust me, he did. Waiting is the hardest part, especially when you already know the truth but have to act like you don't. Every day in that apartment felt like playing chess in slow motion, pretending not to see the next move while secretly planning checkmate. Ryan had no clue anything had changed. He still walked around shirtless, blasting music while making eggs, still kissed me on the forehead when he left for his so-called late nights. The difference was me. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was watching. It's wild how once you switch to observer mode, you start seeing every tell. The little micro gestures that never registered before suddenly feel loud. The way he locked his phone screen the second I walked by. The fake casual tone when he said, "Oh, just work stuff," anytime I asked who texted him. Even his breathing changed. People underestimate how much silence reveals when you stop filling it with conversation. So I waited. I waited for him to mess up. I waited for the universe to hand me something undeniable. But waiting didn't mean doing nothing. I was collecting signals. He started coming home later, sometimes reeking of a bar I'd never been to, sometimes smelling like someone else's perfume, soft, floral, not mine. He'd toss his jacket on the couch and say, "You up?" Like we were roommates instead of partners. I'd answer in the same calm voice. "Yeah, just finishing a report." Inside, though, I was already documenting that moment. Date, time, behavior. Every lie was another data point. One night, he forgot his phone on the counter while showering. I didn't touch it. Didn't need to. The screen lit up on its own, a text preview from a number with no name. "Is it done yet?" Just that. 3 words. I stared at it like it was glowing poison. I didn't know what it was, but I knew exactly what it meant. There was someone else in the loop. Someone who knew about my money. That text played on a loop in my head all night. I laid there beside him, his arm draped across me, his breathing slow and fake innocent, and I thought about every red flag I'd ignored. Trust me, every gaslight. The next morning I smiled at him, made coffee like normal, even joked around a bit. He called me his steady girl. Yeah, steady, like a sniper holding her breath. By then, my emotional switch had completely flipped. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel scared. I felt ready. It was like waiting for a fire to burn out just enough before you walk through it. I didn't know what form the proof would take. Text, email, maybe a slip in conversation. But I knew it was coming. And when it did, I'd be done pretending. He thought the silence meant surrender. He didn't realize silence was just me sharpening my receipts. The truth didn't explode in some dramatic showdown. It landed quietly, like a dropped pin. I was cleaning out my phone storage one Saturday morning, just deleting old voice memos and screenshots, when I noticed an audio file I didn't remember making. Audio 2023-040921 17-36 M4A. The timestamp caught my eye. It was from a night we'd gone out with his friends. One of those evenings where he'd been a little too friendly, a little too smug. I figured maybe I'd butt-dialed a recording or something. But curiosity won, and I tapped play. At first it was just bar noise, clinking glasses, laughter, bass-heavy music. Then I heard him. His voice clear and sharp, cutting right through the background. She never checks the app, man. I just move it a little at a time. She's too busy crunching numbers to notice. I froze. I turned up the volume. Another guy's voice, his buddy maybe, laughed. You're wild, bro. That's risky. Ryan laughed too. 50 grand easy, man. Plus whatever she makes next month. She thinks we're saving for a wedding or something. That was the moment my stomach dropped. I could hear my own faint laugh in the background. God, I must have had my phone in my bag recording without realizing it. Then he added, almost bragging, even if she sees something, I'll twist it. She's emotional. Gaslight City. That word, gaslight, made my pulse spike. He'd said it like a punchline. Like manipulation was a skill set. I replayed that file 3 times, my hands shaking but my breathing steady. Every sentence was a confirmation of what my instincts had been screaming for weeks. He wasn't just careless. He was proud of it. He saw my trust as leverage. My career as a blindfold, I didn't cry. Not then. I just sat there, staring at the waveform on my phone, watching the blue line move across his lies like evidence on tape. The recording was short, under 3 minutes, but it might as well have been a confession letter. Later that night, when he came home, he was all smiles and small talk. He handed me a drink, said, "To us, teamwork." I almost laughed at the irony. I raised my glass, clinked his, and said, "Yeah, teamwork." Inside, though, something fundamental had shifted. That recording was my turning point. The numbers had given me suspicion. The audio gave me certainty. After he fell asleep, I renamed the file, uploaded it to cloud storage, then emailed it to myself from a new account I'd created earlier that week, just in case he ever got access to my phone. The subject line was simple: proof. And then I wrote one line in my notebook before closing it for the night. When someone tells on themselves, you stop investigating, you start exiting. I knew exactly what needed to happen next. The game was over. It was time to clean up the board. After that recording, everything clicked into place. There was no more guessing, no more giving him the benefit of the doubt. The mask had fallen, and I could finally see the real blueprint of what he'd been doing. So I went into silent action mode, my version of a counterattack. No screaming, no confrontations, just quiet, strategic moves. The kind that don't make noise until it's too late to stop them. First thing, I backed up that audio file to 3 different places: an encrypted drive, a hidden folder in my personal cloud, and a flash drive taped under my desk drawer at work. I also printed a transcript of the recording and added it to my growing stack of evidence. Every timestamp, every word, every smug laugh. I labeled the folder Personal Budget Review and left it in plain sight on my desk, right next to old receipts. He'd never look. Then I started detangling myself from our shared life. Anything connected to him, bank logins, subscriptions, utilities, I quietly changed or canceled. I opened a new phone plan under my name only. I updated every password with random strings of numbers and symbols that even I had to write down to remember. If he ever tried to snoop again, he'd hit a wall of dead ends. Next came digital stealth. I turned off read receipts on messages, stopped sharing my location, and disconnected my Apple ID from his devices. If he noticed, he didn't say anything. He was too confident, too sure of his control to imagine I was already miles ahead of him. I also started playing the part of the oblivious girlfriend perfectly. Smiling at dinner, laughing at his lame jokes, even asking about his projects. I wanted him relaxed, comfortable, careless. And it worked. He thought I'd settled back into his story, his version of reality. What he didn't know was that every time he left his laptop open, I noted the files he accessed. He had a folder labeled Taxes 2022. I mirrored the title, but mine contained screenshots of every stolen dollar. Around that same time, I started withdrawing pieces of my physical presence. Clothes, shoes, important documents, all slowly moved out in small batches. I'd take one bag to work each morning, claiming it was for the gym, and stash it in my car. Within 2 weeks, my essentials were gone, but he didn't even notice. Every small victory felt like oxygen. I'd sit across from him at dinner while he talked about our future and think, you have no idea I'm already gone. The final piece of my counterplan was mental. I stopped seeking emotional closure. I didn't need an apology. I needed distance. I didn't care if he ever understood the damage, because understanding doesn't undo theft. I wanted silence, peace, a hard reset. So I played my role, quiet and steady, until the right moment came. Because the thing about people like Ryan, they always create their own downfall. They just need enough rope. And I was done cutting it short. I didn't want flashing lights or cops knocking at the door. I didn't want it to turn into some dramatic movie scene where everyone's shouting over paperwork. I just wanted the truth confirmed, by someone neutral, someone who couldn't be gaslit. So I did the simplest thing imaginable. I called my bank. It was a Tuesday morning. Ryan was at work, or wherever he claimed to be, and I sat at the kitchen table, my laptop open, my voice steady. I told the rep I needed to verify some joint account activity because I suspected unauthorized transfers. My hands were shaking under the table, but my tone was calm, polite, almost clinical. The woman on the line, Amanda, asked for verification info, then went silent for a few minutes while she checked the logs. The sound of keyboard clicks on the other end felt like a countdown. Finally, she said, "Ma'am, all those transfers you're asking about were made under the secondary account holder's login." I asked her to confirm which one that was. She said his name. "Clear as day. Were any transfers initiated from my login?" I asked. "No," she replied. "All recent online activity came from the other party's profile. I swear, I didn't even breathe for a few seconds. I just sat there staring at the muted reflection of myself on the laptop screen, hearing her voice repeat what I already knew but needed to hear. It wasn't paranoia. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a bad memory. It was fact. I asked her if the system kept timestamps and device IDs for each login. She said yes, read them out loud, and I scribbled everything down. Device model, IP address, exact times, all matching the withdrawals I'd documented. It was clean mathematical proof. "Would you like us to open an internal fraud review?" she asked. "No," I said softly. "Not yet. I just needed clarity." She paused, like she wanted to say more, but instead said, "I'm sorry you're going through this, ma'am." That sentence hit harder than expected. It was the first time anyone had acknowledged the situation without judgment or denial. Just sympathy from a stranger who didn't even know my last name. I thanked her, ended the call, and sat there for a long minute in complete silence. Then I added a new page to my notebook titled Validation. I wrote, "Confirmed by bank representative. Transfers, ours his login. Timestamps align with recording. The numbers lined up perfectly, like puzzle pieces sliding into place." I took a deep breath, snapped a picture of my notes, and stored it with the rest of the evidence. That afternoon, I made a promise to myself. No more second guessing. No more questioning my own memory. A professional voice, backed by data, had just confirmed what my instincts had been screaming for months. Ryan had stolen from me. And I wasn't going to let him rewrite that fact again. When I finally confronted him, it wasn't with shouting or tears. It was just quiet. He was sprawled across the couch, scrolling his phone, acting like the king of the world when I said, "I talked to the bank today." He looked up, barely interested, like I'd just told him we were out of milk. "Yeah? About what?" he said. "About the transfers," I replied. "They confirmed they all came from your login." That's when I saw it, the half-second glitch in his expression. His eyes flicked up, froze, then relaxed too fast. "Babe, seriously?" he said, forcing a laugh. "You're still on that?" "I already told you I moved some money to pay bills." I didn't answer. I just placed my phone on the table, hit play, and let his own voice fill the room. "She doesn't even check the app, man." 50 grand easy. His smirk fell away. He stared at the phone like it had betrayed him. When the recording ended, the silence felt like a pressure wave. Then came the script I'd been expecting. "You're taking this out of context," he said, sitting forward, eyes narrowing. "You don't even know what that was about." "It was about me," I said. My voice was calm, almost detached. He scoffed, switching tactics. "Oh, come on, Emma, you record me now? That's messed up." You're invading my privacy. That's when I realized he wasn't shocked by the proof. He was angry I had it. I let him talk, throwing out every manipulative cliché in the book. You're blowing this out of proportion. You're twisting my words. We were drunk. You've always been paranoid. Each excuse fell flat because there was nowhere left for him to hide. I'd already stripped the emotion out of this game. When he saw that nothing he said landed, his tone flipped. He leaned back, fake laugh, said, "You know what? You always do this. You get in your head, start building conspiracy theories. No wonder you're single every 2 years. You sabotage everything good. That one was meant to sting." It didn't. I just looked at him, quiet. That silence seemed to spook him more than if I'd screamed. Then he tried a new play. Guilt. So what? You're just gonna throw away everything we've built? Over a few transactions? You're not perfect either, you know. That's when it hit me. He genuinely believed I might back down. That I'd fall for the same trick he'd used 100 times. Shift blame, build confusion, rewrite history. But I wasn't his version of me anymore. "I'm not throwing anything away," I said softly. "You already did." He started pacing, muttering about how I'd ruined everything. Then the messages started rolling in, mutual friends texting me. "Ryan says you're overreacting. He's worried about you. He says you misunderstood something." He moved fast, spreading his version before I could even tell mine. That's what manipulators do. They build alibis out of sympathy. But I didn't chase anyone down to defend myself. I didn't post, didn't vent, didn't explain. Let him talk. Let them believe whatever version made them comfortable. Because while he was busy spinning lies, I was busy documenting the truth. And truth, unlike charm, doesn't need an audience. Resolution didn't arrive with fireworks or a grand showdown. It showed up in small, deliberate choices that stacked quietly into freedom. After the recording, the denial, the fake apologies, I realized arguing with him was just feeding the cycle. He didn't want to make things right. He wanted to reset the narrative so he could keep control. So I stopped engaging altogether. The morning after that last confrontation, I got up before him. The apartment was dead quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the soft ticking of the clock, our last shared rhythm. I stood there for a moment, coffee mug in hand, and decided I was done letting this space shrink me. No more second chances. No more, maybe he didn't mean it. I set my cup down and started packing. I didn't take much, just the essentials. Laptop, documents, my notebook, the evidence folder, a few clothes. Everything else he could have. The furniture, the dishes, even the stupid coffee maker he loved bragging about. He could keep it all. None of it was worth the emotional mortgage I'd been paying. When he woke up and saw the half-empty closet, his confusion turned fast into anger. "What the hell are you doing?" he said, standing in the doorway. "I'm leaving," I said. My voice didn't shake this time. "Over money? You're gonna ruin your life over a few transfers?" "Over trust," I said. "You broke it. Everything else is just math." He laughed, a short, mean sound. "You're insane. No one's gonna believe you?" "I don't need them to," I said, grabbing my bag. "The numbers already do." He followed me to the door, still talking, still spinning, still trying to anchor me in the same emotional loop he'd kept me trapped in for months. But I didn't even look back. I just stepped into the hallway, pressed the elevator button, and let the door close between us. That moment, the click of the latch sliding into place, was the cleanest sound I'd heard in a year. In the weeks that followed, the noise kept trying to creep back in. He texted long apologies, half threats, half love letters. Mutual friends called, saying he wasn't doing well, and maybe I should talk to him. I didn't. I didn't owe anyone closure but myself. I changed my number, finalized the account separation, and filed a simple claim with the bank documenting his unauthorized transfers. Not to get the money back, but to have the truth officially recorded somewhere other than my notebook. There was no big win, no cinematic revenge, no dramatic karma. Just small victories. A new bank account with a balance of 0 but peace attached to it. A phone that didn't light up with his name. Nights where I could sleep without wondering which version of him I'd wake up next to. That's the real kind of justice. The quiet kind. Not proving him wrong, but proving to myself that I could finally stop living in reaction to him. The money was gone. The debt was real. But so was my exit. And that, in the end, was profit. Rebirth didn't come with fireworks or some dramatic movie montage of getting my life together. It came in small, quiet pieces, like sunlight creeping through blinds after a long night. The first morning in my new place, I sat on the floor with a paper cup of cheap coffee, surrounded by boxes I hadn't unpacked yet. The air smelled like cardboard and freedom. No footsteps pacing behind me, no passive-aggressive silence, no buzzing notifications from shared accounts. Just quiet, the kind that doesn't make you anxious. I opened my notebook, the same one that once held my evidence, and turned to a blank page. For the first time, I didn't write numbers or timelines. I wrote things like sleep in peace, make my own choices, call mom back. The list wasn't about revenge. It was about returning to myself, one ordinary act at a time. A week later, I found a little coffee shop down the street. Nothing fancy, just warm lights, soft jazz, and baristas who didn't care about your past. I started going there every morning, sitting by the window with my laptop and a plain notebook. People came and went, the world kept moving, and I was still. There was something healing about being anonymous again. Nobody knew my story, and for once I didn't feel the need to explain it. One day, I noticed a small flyer on their bulletin board. Support group, rebuilding after financial and emotional manipulation. I stared at it for a long time, fingers resting on the corner of the page. Old me would have rolled my eyes, told herself she didn't need help. But this new version of me, the one who had walked through her own data trail of betrayal, knew better. I pulled the tab with the contact number and slipped it into my notebook, right next to my list. That afternoon, I sat there watching dust float through the sunlight, coffee cooling beside me. My phone buzzed once. It was a message from an unknown number. I didn't even open it. I just deleted it without reading. The peace that followed was instant, like closing a door you didn't realize had been open too long. Later, when I checked my new banking app, there was one single account with one single name, mine. The balance wasn't big, but it was honest. Every number on that screen was earned, not stolen. And for the first time in months, that felt like wealth. I looked out the window, sunlight catching on the rim of my coffee cup, and thought about everything that had happened, not with anger, not with regret, just with clarity. People think rebirth means starting over from scratch. But really, it's just returning to yourself, minus the people who tried to rewrite your story. I closed my notebook, tucked the support group flyer inside, and whispered the line that stayed with me ever since. I can't control the risks other people choose to be. I can only choose not to invest in them, and that's my quiet ending. No revenge, no payback, just peace. The kind you don't need to prove. If you've ever been told you're overreacting, if someone ever made you doubt what you saw with your own eyes, keep watching. Because the moment I stopped defending myself and started defending the evidence, everything changed. In the end, I didn't get my money back, but I got something better. I got my sanity, my silence, and my password back. And trust me, that's worth more than 50 grand.